All right, let's go through the warm-up and then we'll get on to the lesson. So again, for numbers 1 and 2, the first thing we needed to do was solve for x. And then after we know what x is, we're going to evaluate 2x plus 30. So we're going to take our answer for x and we're going to plug it in. So on number 1, the first thing I need to do is distribute this 2 inside the parentheses. So I would have 2x plus 30 plus 2x plus 10 equals 180. Then I combine my like terms. 2x and 2x get combined to give me 4x. And 30 and 10 get combined together to give me 40. So 4x plus 40 equals 180. Subtract 40 from both sides. I get 4x is equal to 140. And I divide both sides by 4. That gives me x is 35. Now that I know what x is, I'm going to come and substitute it into 2x plus 30. So I do 2 times 35 plus 30. 2 times 35 is 70. And 70 plus 30 is 100. For number 2, there's nothing to distribute inside the parentheses, so I'm just going to recopy that. 7x plus 4x plus 20 plus 2x plus 30 equals 180. Combining my like terms, 7x, 4x, and 2x. 7 plus 4 is 11, and then 2 more would be 13. So this is 13x. And then I combine the 20 and the 30 together to get 50. Equals 180. Subtract 50 from both sides. 13x equals 130. Divide both sides by 13. And I find out on number 2 that x is 10. And then again, I need to evaluate 2x plus 30. So I put 10 in the place of the x. 2 times 10 is 20, and 20 plus 30 is 50. For number 3, I need to find the measures of angle 1 and angle 2. To find angle 1, I take the measure of angle 1 plus 26 degrees down here, plus this symbol right here is a right angle symbol, so that means it is 90 degrees. I set that equal to 180. Combine my 2 like terms together right here. I get that the measure of angle 1 plus 116 degrees equals 180. I subtract 116 degrees from both sides. And I get that the measure of angle 1 is 64 degrees. Angle 2 is on the outside of my triangle. I notice that these 2 angles form a linear pair. If the one on the right-hand side is 90 degrees, how big would angle 2 be? Also 90 degrees. This would be a right angle. So the measurement of angle 2 is 90 degrees. I could also use my exterior angles theorem here. Angle 2 should be equal to the sum of my two remote interior angles, angle 1 and 26. If I add angle 1, which is 64 degrees, to 26 degrees, I get 90. So that would be another way to find that. On number 4, we need to find these three exterior angles, angle 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to add them all together. So to find angle 1 first, I'm going to use my exterior angles theorem. Angle 1 is an exterior angle. These two angles right here, 28 and 42, are my remote interior angles, because they are not touching angle 1 up here. So the measurement of angle 1 is equal to 28 degrees plus 42 degrees. So the measurement of angle 1 is 70 degrees. To find angle 2, I can look at these two angles right here. These would form a linear pair. They share side DF, and together they form this line right here, DE. So I know that when I add angle 2 and 28 degrees together, it should equal 180. So then I subtract 28 from both sides. Get the measure of angle 2 is 152 degrees. Last one that we were asked to find is angle 3. Well, these two angles right here, just like on the other side, these form a linear pair. So the measurement of angle 3 plus 42 degrees equals 180 degrees. I can subtract 42 degrees from both sides. So the measurement of angle 3 is 138 degrees. I'm supposed to take angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3. So I'm going to take 70 plus 152 plus 138. When I add those three together, I get 360 degrees. All right. You can go ahead and put away your warm-ups now. I do need you to have two things out: your book, which I asked you yesterday to make sure to bring with you today, and your extra notes packet. We're going to start off in your extra notes packet. We're going to be on the same page that we were on yesterday, just down at the very, very bottom. We're going to do the very bottom of the page, and then we're going to be in your book. CPCTC. This is really, 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 really important. We're going to use it so much in this module and beyond. This is an acronym. It's the first letter of 5 different words, and we're going to write out what this means and where this acronym comes from. This means corresponding parts. So that's the first C and P. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles This is the next C and the T. So we've got CPCT. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. That's our last C. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. By corresponding parts, I mean I'm going to match up. Absolutely. Corresponding parts means that we are going to match up the pieces of each of these triangles that are congruent to each other. Backside of the front page. You're welcome. So let's match up our corresponding sides first. Looking at triangle ABC. Look at this side right here, BC. Do you see how it has the one little tick mark on it here? Which side on the other triangle has one tick mark? LK. So BC is congruent to LK or KL. Side BA has two little congruence marks on it. Which side over here on this other triangle has two congruence marks on it? Which one? JK or KJ. Either way. And then which side has three congruence marks on our first triangle? AC. AC has these three little tick marks on it. That side would be congruent to the same one that has three tick marks on the other triangle, which is which side? LJ or JL. So my corresponding sides, again, I've matched up the sides that are congruent to each other in these two triangles. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to do it with our angles. So I notice over here that angle B, up at the top, has one arc mark on it. Which angle on the other triangle has one arc mark? K. So angle B is congruent to angle K. First triangle, which angle has two arc marks on it? C. So angle C is going to be congruent to which angle on the other triangle has two arc marks? L, right here. First triangle, which angle has three arc marks? A. So angle A is congruent to what? Angle J, because that one also has three arc marks on it. Writing our triangle congruence statement. The order that we put things in when we are writing a congruence statement is really, really important. So triangle, I'm going to look at my corresponding angles here, the angles that are congruent to each other. From my first triangle, I have angle B, so I'm going to put that first. Then I have angle C. And last I have angle A. When I write my second triangle, I want to make sure that the order of the letters is telling me which things are congruent. So angle B, the first one that I wrote here, angle B was congruent to which angle? K. K. So I put K first. The first angle here should be congruent to the first angle here. And then we had C in the middle. What angle was congruent to C? L. So first angle is congruent to first angle. Second angle is congruent to second angle. Then I had A. What angle was congruent to A? J. So I've made sure to match up each of these. When I look at the same position, first, second, or third, those angles are congruent between the two triangles. My triangle congruence statement also is going to match up the sides that are congruent. Notice right here I have B and C together. We said side BC was congruent to what? KL. First two angles, so that is my side BC is congruent to the first two right here, KL. When I look at the second two letters, so the middle and the last one, I have CA. It's the same thing as AC, right? We said that AC or CA was congruent to what? AC is congruent to what? JL. Look right here, I have J and L as the second and third letter. Side BA, first and third letter. We said BA was congruent to what? KJ. First letter and third letter, KJ. So we've matched up all of the congruent parts in the way that we named these two triangles. It's really important for a triangle congruence statement to show that. I want to practice this again. Your book has a really good picture for us to use. Go ahead and grab your book out. Page 298. We're going to practice writing a congruence statement again. This time, instead of triangles, we have polygons, things with four sides. Technically, these are quadrilaterals since they have four sides. Page 298, it's going to be up at the very top of the page is where they have this printed. We're going to show that the polygons are congruent by identifying all the corresponding parts, and then we're going to write a congruence statement. So let's start off with our angles. Angle P in this top shape has how many arc marks on it? 1. That'd be congruent to which angle down here in the other polygon? G. So P is congruent to angle G. Angle Q up here in my top shape has 2 arc marks on it. That means it's congruent to, you said which one? Angle F, because it also has 2 congruence marks on it. Angle R has 3 arc marks. That would be congruent to E. And finally, angle S would be congruent to which one? Angle D, because they both have 4 arc marks on them. Once I've matched up my congruent angles, I can write my congruence statement. I want to do that first, and then we'll go back and talk about the sides, and we'll see where that's matched up in our congruence statement. So I have polygon PQRS. So when I write the polygon that it's congruent to, the first letter has to be congruent to angle P. Which angle was congruent to P? G. So I would have G as the first letter here. And then it's Q. Q is congruent to F. So PQ, then R. R was congruent to E. And finally, we have S. S is congruent to D. So G, F, E, D. Each of these angles in my first polygon is congruent to angles in the same position in my second polygon. All right, let's work on our sides next. Side PQ in my top polygon. That's up here. And it has how many congruence marks on it? How many congruence marks does side PQ have? 1, right here. Here's another thing that I look for when I'm writing my sides that are congruent. Notice P has 1 arc mark on it, and Q has 2. Which one down here had 1 arc mark on it? G. And F has 2 arc marks on it. Here's my segment with 1 congruence mark. I want to write it in the same order so that I'm matching up these congruences. So P is congruent to G. So I would start with G. Q is congruent to F. So I would have F second. I want to make sure that even when I'm writing my sides, the first angle here, this first letter, is congruent to the first letter here. Second letter is congruent to the second letter. When I come down here and look at my my polygon congruent statement, PQ, these first 2 right here, congruent to GF, and it should be in the same order. All right, then we go to QR. Let's come up here and look at my top polygon again. Q is right up here. What's the angle that's congruent to Q again? F is congruent. So I'm going to start this with F. Q, R. R has how many congruence marks on it? 3. Which one had 3 congruence marks on it here? E. So F, E. And when I look at the segment between F and E, that segment has how many arc marks on it? 3. Does that match up with the top one? It has 3 congruence marks. 1, 2, 3, right there. When I look at my polygon congruent statement, Q and R are the middle 2 letters. F and E are the middle 2 letters. So those 2 segments would be congruent to each other. All right, then we go to RS. R is right here with 3 congruence marks on it, so that matches up with E. Which angle was congruent to S again? D. So this would be ED. From R to S, we have 3 congruence marks on it. From E to D, we have 3 congruence marks on it. Didn't we already have one with 3 congruence marks? So how did I know that RS matched up with ED and not EF? What else can I match up other than just these congruence marks? Yep, I can match up my arc marks for my angles. I want to match up my angles, and that's going to help me with my sides there. All right, side SP is congruent to what? DG. S has 4 arc marks on it, so does D. P has 1 arc mark on it, so does G. Please bring both your notes and your book with you tomorrow to class. We're going to be in both of them again. We're going to use corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent to solve some problems. So we're going to practice matching up again and then using that information to solve problems. The homework that you picked up on your way in the door is due on Friday. So we'll wrap this lesson up tomorrow so that you guys can complete that homework for Friday. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, everybody.